want to be like that.
Sir, do you have a driver's license?
I do.
Okay. All you have to do is produce it to us.
But I have a permit that's valid and it's still good. She has a license, so I can drive.
That's all we
but
need you to do.
I know that's what you want, but legally
No,
I'm traveling,
legally,
so
you're required to.
yeah, if I
for a valid reason.
if
So
I know if I'm driving,
you're gonna be under arrest.
I know. I want you to hear me out. If I'm driving and Black's Law Dictionary, driving says I'm operating in commercial capacity, I'm traveling. I'm not on the roadways making money.
We're going to discuss this in court, okay? This is not the time to discuss this. We're on the side
I've
of the
beat
road.
this in court many a times and sued many a cops over this same thing. You have to, listen, legally, you have to have a warrant. This isn't even a crime. To break my window, you have to have a crime. This isn't even a crime. Do you even know what you're acting on, what oath of office? Do you even know what that is? To get your position, you have to swear to the Constitution of the United States.
One more chance here. Either provide that license to us right now.
So this is like
or you're
coercion.
Under arrest for failure to produce a license.
You know that's fraud. That's coercion,
That's
right?
Fraud. Okay. One more chance.
You're also going to be, just so you understand, you're also going to be under arrest for resisting and obstructing, which is a felony.
You can't be you cannot be under arrest for resisting arrest when you're not under arrest in the first place.
Okay.
Wait,
Right?
don't break my window. Hold on. I'll come out. Don't try to manhandle me.
Because we're kicking that window in a second.
All right, listen. Just to stop you from getting sued real bad. I'm coming out, but do not grab me
Right now.
and start fucking throwing me around, because I know my rights and I will sue the fuck out of you.
Come out right now. Then.
I'm letting you know. You know what sovereignty is?
I'm not worried.
Do you
about
know what
that right now.
sovereignty is?
I'm out
You know
right
what
now.
jurisdiction is? I'm coming out. My hands up. No weapons on me. Just to let you know.
Come out of the car.
You give me my paper that shows that I got. You give me my paper that shows that I got.
Do you have any weapons on you?
No, sir. I already told you that. I just, you know what? I know a lot of times people get out of their cars because they're trying to generate pressure.
I don't think anyone has the right to take my life. Should you? When I'm under hallucination. I'm going to be gone
Hello and welcome to the Synful Show. I'm your host, Father Sin, aka Ray. This week we're covering the sovereign citizens. We're running a little bit behind schedule for the episodes, but hey, you know, things happen. This past weekend we suffered some tragic events. One in El Paso and the other in Dayton, Ohio. Yes, I claim Dayton, Ohio. I've performed there many times, and I also still go out there to do promotions for the Synful Show. But that's besides the point. Something tragic seriously happened there. I just take a minute and let's focus on the victims, the ones who've died in Dayton. Lois L. Oglesby, 27, was in nursing school and was a mother of 2 children. She had recently returned from maternity leave. She was a wonderful mother, a wonderful person. Megan K. Betts. She was the sister of the shooter, was a student at Wright State University, studying earth and environmental sciences. She spent the last 4 months as a tour guide at Missoula Smoke Jumper Visitor Center in Montana, where visitors learned about fighting fires in remote areas with no roads. It was also noted by Chief Beal of the Dayton Police that the siblings came together to the city's Oregon district before the attack, though the brother separated from his sister and another friend at some point in the evening. Chief Beal said that Betts was one of the first people killed in an attack and that their friend was among the injured. When asked about the family, Beal said, "I think you can imagine this is a nightmare for them. I think they are struggling, as you can understand." Saeed Saleh, it's sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Saleh, 38 years old. It was immediately possible to find additional information about Saleh because of his common name. Derek R. Fudge, 57. Fudge was a Springfield, Ohio resident who was visiting the Oregon District with his son and his niece, Asia Fudge. He had a dog that he loved dearly. He was fun, happy. Asia said, "He's survived by 5 siblings and his extended family. Everyone's just trying to come together and get through it. It's the best we can," his niece said. Logan M. Turner, 30. Turner was a resident of Springboro, Ohio, and a machinist at the Thaler Machine Company. According to his LinkedIn page, his mother, Danita Turner, told Dayton Daily News that she was out on Saturday night in Oregon District with his friends to celebrate his recent 30th birthday. He was very generous and loving and the world's best son, Turner's mother told a newspaper. Everyone loved Logan. He was a happy-go-lucky guy. Turner's mother said he was a graduate of Sinclair Community College and the University of Toledo, where he had studied engineering. Nicholas P. Kumer, 25, was a graduate student in the Master of Cancer Care program at St. Francis University in Loretto, Pennsylvania, according to a statement released by the school on Sunday afternoon. Nicholas was dedicated to caring for others, wrote the university's president. He was recognized at the 2019 Community Engagement Awards among students who had completed 100-plus hours of service. In addition, he was a graduate assistant with the university marching band. Kumar had been in Dayton this summer completing an internship program with the Maple Tree Cancer Alliance. Thomas J. McNichols, 25. McNichols was a father of 4 from Dayton, according to the Dayton Daily News. His 2 sisters and 2 sons range from ages 2 to 8. His aunt, Donna Johnson, told a newspaper that everyone regarded him as a gentle giant. Jevin Lamar, a cousin of McNichols, told the New York Times that McNichols, who went by TJ, was a great father, a great brother, and he was a protector. Johnson said McNichols attended Dunbar High School in the city and worked at a Dayton factory. She added that McNichols went to the Oregon District on Saturday night with a cousin. Monica E. Brickhouse, 39. She hailed from Springfield, Ohio, and lived in Virginia Beach, Virginia, according to her social media profiles. She worked as a recovery specialist for Anthem. Her LinkedIn profile states, her Facebook profile also advertises a design, event planning, and catering business called Two Good Girls. Brickhouse attended Springfield South High School and College for America at Southern New Hampshire University, according to her LinkedIn page. And Beatrice N. Warren Curtis, 36, resided in Carrollton, Virginia, according to public records. She appeared to have been friends with Brickhouse. A Facebook post mourns both of them and suggests that she went by Nicole, her middle name. Quote, to lose a loved one to senseless violence is just unfair, especially since it could be preventable, the post said. My thoughts and condolences go to the families of the victims. I felt obliged to do that. I don't have a political agenda. And that's the thing a lot of people are pushing right now. And anytime these crises happen anywhere in the United States, a lot of people use that as leverage. And it's bullshit. It's bullshit. It doesn't matter which political view you have or your outtake on guns or the Second Amendment, this, that, and other. There's victims in this. My heart goes out to them. Now, let's get to the topic at hand here. Let's take our minds somewhere else. At the beginning of the episode, you heard a very interesting clip here. Imagine you get pulled over for taillight being out. You get caught speeding. You roll a stop sign, something like that. Is it a crime? I'm pretty sure it is. I am pretty sure it is. But there are a group of people out there that follow the sovereign citizen movement that believe that these are not crimes. And that they're not driving a vehicle. They're traveling. They're traveling. So they're not operating a motor vehicle. They're just traveling. They're not. Oh, goodness. You're going to get a kick out of some of this. I mean, if you cite on this, you know what? I can't feel sorry for you, because here in the state of Ohio, and I believe anywhere else, it's not a right to drive. It is a privilege. And yeah, you got to follow the laws, guys. So dig in. We're going to break this down. We're going to cover some other events in the episode here of sovereign citizens. And we'll touch base on one that I remember from years ago, which ended very violently, which they were sovereign citizens. And that happened here, actually, in Ohio in Clinton County. So buckle in and let's get going. I'm sure you've probably seen news clips, seen stuff on YouTube, etc. about this, but you're probably trying to figure out what exactly is a sovereign citizen. Well, the sovereign citizen movement is a loose grouping of American and Commonwealth litigants, commentators, tax protesters, and financial scheme promoters, self-described as sovereign citizens. They see themselves answerable only to their particular interpretation of the common law, and as not subject to any government statutes or proceedings. In the United States, they do not recognize U.S. currency and maintain that they are free of any legal constraints. They especially reject most forms of taxation as illegitimate. Participants in the movement argue this concept in opposition to the idea of federal citizens who they say have unknowingly forfeited their rights by accepting some aspect of federal law. The doctrines of the movement resemble those of the freemen on the land movement, more commonly found in the Commonwealth, such as in Britain and in Canada. Many members of the sovereign citizen movement believe that the United States government is illegitimate. J.J. McNabb, who writes for Forbes about anti-government extremism, has described the sovereign citizen movement as consisting of individuals who believe that the county sheriff is the most powerful law enforcement officer in the country, with authority superior to that of any federal agent, elected official, or local law enforcement official. This belief can be tracked down and back to white extremist groups like Posse Comitatus and the Constitutional Militia Movement. I know I butchered that. The Federal Bureau of Investigation classifies some sovereign citizen extremists as domestic terrorists. In 2010, the Southern Poverty Law Center estimated that approximately 100,000 Americans were hardcore sovereign believers, with another 200,000 just starting out by testing sovereign techniques for resisting everything from speeding tickets to drug charges. In surveys conducted in 2014 and 2015, representatives of U.S. law enforcement ranked the risk of terrorism from the sovereign citizen movement higher than the risk from any other group, including Islamic extremists, militias, racists, and neo-Nazis. The New South Wales Police Force in Australia has also identified sovereign citizens as a potential terrorist threat. Writing in American Scientific Affiliation, Dennis L. Fuchs reviewed American Militias, Rebellion, Racism, and Religion by Richard Baines and described the theory of Richard MacDonald, a sovereign citizen leader, which is that there are two classes of citizens in America. The original citizens of the states, or state citizens, and U.S. citizens. MacDonald asserts that U.S. citizens, or 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment citizens have civil rights legislated to give the freed black slaves after the Civil War rights comparable to the unalienable constitutional rights of white state citizens. The benefits of U.S. citizenship are received by consent in exchange for freedom. State citizens consequently take steps to revoke and rescind their U.S. citizenship and reassert their de jure common law state citizen status. This involves removing oneself from federal jurisdiction and relinquishing any evidence of consent to U.S. citizenship, such as a social security number, driver's license, car registration and use of zip codes, marriage license, voter registration, and birth certificate. Also included is refusal to pay state and federal income taxes because citizens not under U.S. jurisdiction are not required to pay them. Only resident aliens of the states nor its citizens are income taxable state citizens argue. And as a state citizen landowner, one can bring forward the original land patent and file it with the county for absolute or allodial property rights. Such allodial ownership is held without recognizing any superior to whom any duty is due on account thereof. Black Law's Dictionary. And you'll hear that term, Black Law's Dictionary, in a lot of videos with the sovereign citizens. You go through YouTube and you find a video, you're going to hear Black Law's Dictionary, common law, this, that, and another. Superiors include those who levy property taxes or who hold mortgages or liens against the property. In support of his theories, MacDonald has established state citizens service centers around the United States, as well as related web presence. Writer Richard Albanese asserts that sovereign citizens fail to sufficiently examine the context of the case laws they cite and ignore adverse evidence, such as Federalist number 15, where Alexander Hamilton expressed the views that the Constitution placed everyone personally under federal authority. Some sovereign citizens also claim that they can become immune to most or all laws of the United States by renouncing their citizenship, a process they refer to as expatriation. I'm saying it wrong. I'm butchering it. Expatriation. Yeah, I'm in retard mode right now. Which involves filing or delivering a non-legal document claiming to renounce citizenship in a federal corporation and declaring only to be a citizen of the state in which they reside, to any county's clerk's office that can be convinced to accept it. Now, the concept of a sovereign citizen originated in 1971, in the Commentators movement. as a teaching of Christian identity, Minister William P. Gale, the concept has influenced the tax protester movement, the Christian patriot movement, and redemption movement, the last of which that the U.S. government uses its citizens as collateral against foreign debt. Gale identified the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution as the act that converted sovereign citizens into federal citizens by their agreement to a contract to accept benefits from the federal government. Other commentators have identified other acts, including the Uniform Commercial Code, the Emergency Banking Act, the Zone Improvement Plan, and the alleged suppression of the Titles of Nobility Amendment. In addition to Gale's white nationalist origins, their sovereign arguments have been adopted by the Moorish sovereigns. Their beliefs may have derived in part from the Moorish Science Temple of America, which has condemned the sovereign citizen ideologies. The underpinning of these theories of African American exemption vary. The Washita Nation claims rights through provisions in the Louisiana Purchase Treaty granting privileges to Moors as early colonists and non-existent United Nations Indigenous Peoples Seat 215. Some of those in this movement believe that the term sovereign citizen is an oxymoron and prefer to label themselves as individuals seeking the truth. Now, as stated, this has been around, or this movement started around the 70s, and individuals have tried to use sovereign citizens in arguments. Variations of the argument that an individual is not subject to various laws because the individual is sovereign has been rejected by the courts, especially in tax cases such as Johnson versus Commissioner. Phyllis Johnson's argument that she was not subject to the federal income tax because she was an individual sovereign citizen, which was rejected by the court. Wyckoff versus Commissioner argument by Austin Wyckoff that he was not subject to the federal income tax because he wasn't an individual sovereign citizen, and this was rejected by the court. United States versus Hart. Douglas Hart's argument in response to a lawsuit against him for filing false lien notices against the IRS personnel that the U.S. District Court had no jurisdiction over him because he was a sovereign citizen. Oh, guess what? That was rejected by the District Court in the United States Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit. Young versus Internal Revenue Service. Jerry Young's argument that the Internal Revenue Code did not pertain to him because he was a sovereign citizen. Uh-oh. And this was rejected by the U.S. District Court. Stockland versus Commissioner. Kenneth Stockland's argument that he was a free-born and sovereign person and was therefore not subject to income tax laws. And you know what the court said? This was rejected by the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit. And the court imposed a $3,000 penalty on Stockland for filing a frivolous appeal. And also in Reisner versus Commissioner Gregg, not Commissioner Gregg, but in Reisner versus Commissioner Gregg Reisner's argument that he was not subject to federal income tax because he was self-governing, free-born sovereign citizen. And the court rejected this as being a frivolous protest of the tax laws. Oh, I could probably go on and on and on with all of these. There's a ton of them. Here's another tax case. Heitman versus Idaho State Tax Commission. This is state, this ain't federal. Coburn versus Commissioner. John Coburn's arguments that he had the ability to opt out of liability for federal income tax because he was white, that he was a sovereign citizen of Oregon, that he was a non-resident alien in the United States, and that his sovereign status made his body real property. This was rejected by the court and was ruled to be frivolous tax protester type arguments. Andrew Snyder was convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison for making a threat by mail. Snyder argued that he was a free sovereign citizen and therefore was not subject to the jurisdiction of the federal courts. One more time. This was rejected by the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit as having no conceivable validity in American law. Now, in 2013, see? Oh, goodness gracious. 2013, this wasn't too long ago. A U.S. District Court for the Western District of Washington noted defendant Kenneth Wayne Leeming is apparently a member of a group loosely styled sovereign citizens. The court has deduced this from a number of defendants' peculiar habits. First, like Mr. Leeming, however you want to say it, sovereign citizens are fascinated by capitalization. They appear to believe that capitalizing names have some sort of legal effect. For example, defendant writes that the registered facts, this is in all capital letters, appearing in the above paragraphs evidence that uncontroverted and uncontrovertible facts, all capital letters, that the slavery systems, in all caps, operated in the names, in all caps, United States of America, and terminating nunc pro tunc by publicly policy UCC 1-103. He appears to believe that by capitalizing United States, he is referring to a different entity than the federal government. For better or for worse, it's the same country. Second, sovereign citizens like Mr. Leeming love Grendanese legalese, in all caps. Comes now. Kenneth Wayne, born free to the family learning. Date of birth redacted. Constituent to the people of the state of Washington, constituted 1878, and admitted to the Union 22 February 1889 by act of Congress. A man, state of body, competent to be a witness and having first-hand knowledge of the facts. Third, defendant evinces, like all sovereign citizens, believe that the federal government is not real and that he does not have to follow the law. Thus, defendant argues that as result of the registered facts, which is in all caps, the state of body persons, actors, and other parties perpetuating the above caps and transactions are engaged in acts of treason, in all caps. And if unknowingly as victims of treason and fraud, the court therefore feels some measure of responsibility to inform defendant that all the fancy legal sounding things he has read on the internet are make-believe. Kenneth Wayne Leeming was found guilty of 3 counts of retaliating against a federal judge or law enforcement officer by false claim, 1 count of concealing a person from arrest, and 1 count of being a felon in possession of a firearm. On May 24, 2013, Leeming was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. In challenges to laws requiring driver's license, defendants have unsuccessfully asserted that as sovereign citizens, there is an inalienable right to drive on highways. Albert Cuba argued this, that he was convicted of driving while suspended. If your license is suspended, you're not supposed to drive. The Supreme Court of North Dakota rejected his argument and upheld his conviction. Also, in Australia, there has been a few minor cases where parties invoked arguments surrounding the sovereign man. All these arguments have failed before Australian courts. The courts in New Zealand also appear to have rejected the sovereign man arguments. Remember how I mentioned something about filing false liens? Well, false lien notices. According to the New York Times, cases involving so-called sovereign citizens pose a challenge to law enforcement officers and court officials. In connection with filing of false notices of liens, a tactic sometimes called paper terrorism, anyone could file a notice of lien against a property such as real estate, vehicles, or other assets of another under the Uniform Commercial Code and other laws. In most states of the United States, the validity of liens is not investigated or inquired into at the time of filing. Notice of, in parentheses, whether legally valid or not, are a cloud of the title of the property and may affect the property owner's credit rating. Ability to obtain home equity loans, refinance the property, or take other actions with regards to the property. Notices of releases of liens generally must be filed before property may be transferred. The validity of a lien is determined by further legal procedures. Clearing up fraudulent notices of liens may be expensive and time-consuming. Filing fraudulent notices of liens or documents is both a crime and a civil offense. Hey, you loving the Synful show? I sure love making it for you guys. But what if I told you you can get paid to listen to the Synful show? That's right, you can get paid for listening to it. You're like, how in the hell am I going to get paid for listening to a podcast? Well, there's an app out there called Podcoin. And all you do is just download it. And it's available on your iPhone or Android. That's right, just download it. And you can listen to the Synful show. And while listening to any of your podcasts, you earn Podcoin. And Podcoin can be exchanged for gift cards. I think they had a nice set of Bose headphones on there. But, yeah, you earn enough of them coins. You can trade them in for gift cards, which I believe were Amazon and Starbucks. Or, if you're a nice guy like me, I trade in all my coins for the research for childhood cancer. I believe that's what I turned mine into for. So, yeah. You can do that, too. So you can either get gift cards or donate to other charities on there as well. What are you waiting for? Go get it. Let me know. Use the code Synful, Synful with a Y. You'll get 300 coins, pod coins, on me. So, yeah, I mean, this sounds more annoying than anything for the courts to have to deal with, but it's also can become a safety issue with police officers. In May of 2010, 2 police officers in West Memphis, Arkansas, were shot and killed by Joseph T. Kane. After Kane and his father were the subject of a traffic stop, Kane and his father were later identified as members of the sovereign citizen movement. In September of 2010, David Russell Merlin, an associate of the Sovereign Citizens Group, sent emails and placed telephone calls to various officials to the city of Kirkland, Washington, telling them to keep their doors unlocked, that they were going to be arrested, and that they should not resist. Merlin also reported threatening federal judges and the chief prosecutor of King County, Washington. Merlin's threat to arrest the mayor of Kirkland came about after he was arrested by police. His vehicle was impounded after he was found driving with a suspended license and expired license tags. An unloaded gun with ammunition nearby had been found in the seat of the car. Although he was not a law enforcement officer, Merlin had claimed that he had the authority to form a group of private citizens to arrest felons in public office, as permitted by RCW 9A.16.020, the state statute governing the lawful use of force. On December 2nd, 2011, Merlin was sentenced to 3 years and 4 months in federal prison after pleading guilty in connection with the threats he made, including the threat to arrest the mayor of Kirkland, Washington. While in prison, he submitted a civil lawsuit without the required filing fee, accusing the government of civil rights violations, claiming that the criminal complaint against him was babbling collusion threats and backwards correct syntax and modification fraud. Merlin was released from prison on January 29th, 2014. In March 2011, a central figure in the Southern Citizen Movement named Samuel Lynn Davis pleaded guilty to 31 counts of money laundering in federal district court in Nevada. Davis was snared in a sting operation after he agreed to launder more than $1.29 million in what he believed to be illicit funds. Davis accepted $73,782 in fees to launder the money, not realizing he was dealing with federal law enforcement agents. October 2011, Davis was sentenced to 4 years and 9 months in federal prison and was ordered to pay over $95,000 in restitution. As late of late July 2012, Davis was classified as a fugitive, having failed to surrender the authorities to begin his prison sentence in June 2012. On August 7th, 2012, Davis was arrested by sheriff's deputies in White Earth, North Dakota, and was scheduled for release from prison on April 24th, 2017. In December 2011, Sean Talbot Rice was arrested at his home at Seligman, Arizona. Sorry if you're from there in Arizona. After a 10-hour standoff with FBI agents and other law enforcement personnel. On July 24th, 2012, Rice was found guilty in federal court in Nevada in connection with the same money laundering scheme that resulted in the conviction of Samuel Lynn Davis. The guilty verdicts came on 1 count of conspiracy to commit laundering, 13 counts of money laundering, and 4 counts of failure to appear in court in connection with time that Rice spent as a fugitive. Rice, who had also falsely claimed to be a lawyer and a rabbi, was described as a leader in the anti-government sovereign citizens movement. During the trial, Rice tried to argue that the presiding federal judge had no authority to render a judgment against Rice. On March 20th, 2013, Rice was sentenced to 8 years and 2 months in prison and was ordered to forfeit over $1.29 million. As of early June 2014, Rice is incarcerated at the Florence Federal Correctional Institution at Florence, Colorado, and is scheduled for release on October 9th, 2020. Well, let's jump a few years ahead of time here on the timeline here. On June 6, 2014, Dennis Marks, who was later identified as being a member of the Southern Citizen Movement, opened fire on a Forsyth County, Georgia courthouse, injuring 1 deputy before being shot and killed himself. Marks had become involved in a dispute with the sheriff's office in 2011. He had been arrested on marijuana and weapons possession charges. As a result, Marks sued the sheriff's department for alleged civil rights violations and use of excessive force. The Southern Poverty Law Center asserts that in the suit, Marks filed documents using the pseudo-legal language common to sovereign citizen court actions. On the day of the incident, Marks had been scheduled to enter a plea at the courthouse in connection with the year 2011 arrest that had resulted in his lawsuit. On June 18, 2014, Sharon Phillips, who sometimes calls herself River Tali El Bay, was found guilty at a federal court by a federal court jury in Chicago on 10 counts of retaliatory filing of false claims, including $100 million billion trillion dollars. No, $100 billion in false lien notices against various government officials. Apparently in connection with her brother's conviction on drug conspiracy charges in 2008. Even as the jury was deliberating her own case, Phillips had claimed that the court had no jurisdiction over her. After the guilty verdict was announced, U.S. District Court Judge Michael Reagan referred to her as a paper terrorist, and the United States Marshal took her into custody. On October 14, 2014, she was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Phillips is a resident of the Federal Correctional Institute at Waskia, Minnesota, and is scheduled for release on August 20th, 2020. So I'm assuming that robbing banks is okay too by their account, and my guess is correct. Because in January 2015, Ishaq Ibrahim, 28 of Philadelphia, was convicted in a court in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, of multiple counts of conspiracy and robbery after defending himself using sovereign citizen arguments. Ibrahim, charged with bank robbery, repeatedly questioned the validity of the proceedings and the jurisdiction of the judge during the trial, and asserted he did not consent to the proceedings. Ibrahim initially represented himself at trial, but after he became disruptive and was removed from the courtroom. The judge appointed lawyers to represent him. Ibrahim then monitored the trial via video from another room. In Miami, Florida, 2015, 40-year-old Iyaz Bowens was sentenced to 485 years in prison for repeatedly raping a 16-year-old girl and forcing her to cut herself. Bowens claimed to be a sovereign citizen and to be immune from U.S. laws. Well, I doubt he's immune to prison justice, though, because hopefully someone's giving him a good old stabbing. Piece of shit. Let's set up a couple more of these. December 13th, 2016, Markeith Lloyd allegedly shot and killed his girlfriend, Sadie Dixon, and then fled the scene. On January 9th, 2017, Orlando police officer Lieutenant Deborah Clayton was alerted to Lloyd's presence at a Walmart on John Young Parkway. Officer Clayton attempted to arrest Lloyd, and Lloyd allegedly shot and killed the lieutenant. Markeith Lloyd was successfully arrested on January 17, 2017, after being located in the Orlando Carver Shores area. On March 1st, 2017, Lloyd appeared in an Orange County court where he said, "For the record, I want to state that I am Markeith Lloyd. Flesh and blood. I'm a human being. I'm not a fictitious person. I'm not a corporation." He went on to say, "And therefore, I'm going to tell you the fact. I am due in court. I accept the charges value. And I want to use my UCC financial statement, my number, to write these charges off." The officiating judge, Chief Judge Frederick J. Lawton, ended up assigning Lloyd a standby lawyer because he believes Lloyd believes he is a sovereign citizen. On March 16, 2017, Florida Governor Rick Scott replaced 9th Judicial Circuit State Attorney Aramis de Alea with State Attorney Brad King as prosecutor of the state's case against Markeith Lloyd due to Alea's decision to not seek the death penalty against Lloyd. And you guys remember the little diddler from Subway? Jared Fogle? Yeah, the convicted sex offender. In 2017 of November, he filed a motion to overturn his convictions by stating that the federal court did not have jurisdiction to convict him of his status as a sovereign citizen. His motion was dismissed as frivolous. So yeah, just you can find more and more and more and more. The videos are hilarious on YouTube. Just type in sovereign citizens and you can find some great compilations, I tell you what. But so here's pretty much this is the government's responses for this type of wackadoodleness. Following the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, Congress passed the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996, enhancing sentences for certain terrorist-related offenses. So, yeah, you can guess why. Yep, those guys are sovereign citizens. In October 2015, during a domestic terrorism seminar at George Washington University, National Security Division Leader and Assistant Attorney General John P. Carlin stated that the Obama administration had witnessed anti-government views triggering violence throughout America. Carlin personally confirmed that 2014 START survey findings, saying that during his time at the FBI and DOJ, law enforcement officials have identified sovereign citizens as their top concern. Carlin referred to social media as a radicalization echo chamber through which domestic extremists deliver, reappropriate, and reinforce messages of hate, propaganda, and calls to recruitment and violence. He charged its service providers with the responsibility of tracking and taking actions against any such abuse of its services. Carlin announced that in order to ensure that the DOJ benefited from terrorist-related information and input received from around the country, it had created a new position of Domestic Terrorism Counsel. He said the position would serve several functions as the main point of contact for the U.S. attorneys working on domestic terrorism matters to ensure proper coordination of domestic terrorism cases, to play a key role in DOJ headquarters level efforts to identify domestic terrorism trends, and to analyze legal gaps or enhancements in order to better shape department strategies for countering national security threats, and to help direct DTEC efforts by providing members with overview and insights into various domestic terrorisms. What the hell am I saying? Terrorism cases and trends. Now, this is a pretty bad thing, and, you know, we're caught up on everything else in this world. This shit's scary. It is scary because there's people out there that actually think this stuff and believe this stuff. And it's not just against law enforcement. I've seen one with the actually within the post office, and people saying they don't need a zip code and stuff like this, or they don't need a stamp to mail something. What do you mean? That's how the post office works, for fuck's sake. So anyways, hopefully you learned something about sovereign citizens. And if you could leave me a positive review on iTunes or wherever else you can write a review, please do so. It helps me out tremendously. Please share the show with a friend. Whether you got to take the phone from them and download it for them, that'd be awesome. But anyways, till next week, I'm Father Sin. And stay sinful, my friends.
I don't think anyone has a right to take the life when I'm under
ticket for failure to dim. So, I'm gonna fight that in court.
Videoing you for my safety and yours. Can I have your card, sir? Here's mine.
I need your driver's license.
I don't have it. It's in the house.
What's your name?
It's in the house. What's your name?
I'm at use the traffic.
I'm taking her to work. Oh, she could take herself to work then. I'll go back in my home.
You're driving. We have the legal reason to stop.
I'm on my house now. No, you don't.
ran a stop sign.
You followed me. I came back home to get her coffee.
What's your first name?
I don't have my ID, sir.
Okay, what is your first name?
What is your name?
What is your first name?
I don't need to give you my name.
Yes, you do.
No, I
You're driving
don't.
a vehicle.
She is handicapped. I'm driving it for her. She's blind in her left eye.
Okay, that doesn't mean you don't have
I
to
do
use
not.
your driver's
I do not
license
to
when
do,
you're
need to
driving a
give you my
vehicle.
name.
Okay.
Here's my name. Here, I do not have my license. Here's my name. Give me your card.
Okay, I need a date of birth.
No, you don't. Am I being detained for what?
Yes.
For stuff for running a stop
Running
sign?
a stop sign, yes, sir.
Okay, get out of the car, Marissa. You're not being detained. Get out of the car. Get out. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Get out of the car.
Okay, she's got a brain aneurysm, sir. You guys are about to really fuck up your job. What?
Sir, please, I have a
Give him your date of birth.
Okay, this will be real quick if he just gives us his information. What's your date of birth?
Sir, excuse me.
I don't need you to give you my information. I was delivered a eviction notice here. You have my eviction. What do you need me? What do you need my information for? I'm trying to take my wife to work.
Okay, because you don't have a driver's license. Okay.
It's in my home.
Okay, so just give me your name and date of birth, and I'll verify that you have a driver's
No, I'm not giving you my name and date of birth. Write me a citation for my driving a red light.
I don't know who you are.
You don't need to. I'm on my own property.
Okay, well,
I'm not giving you. I don't. It's in my house. You won't let me out of my vehicle. I ran a stop sign because you guys, when I turned left there, I realized I forgot something, my wallet. So, can I have your card and your deputy number? Who are you? Who are you?
I'll give you that right when I'm...
No, I need it now. I need your name now. I need your name now. You're not going to stand it. I'm
My
not
name
going
is Deputy Smoke.
Okay, give me your card. I want you to supervisor.
give you that.
And I want Roger Vasquez Sr. here right now. He's sitting at Tropical Bakery. I know you guys. Get Roger Vasquez Sr. here. And Louis Vasquez. This is bullshit. Bullshit, man. My wife's blind in her left eye, sir.
Ryan. Alright, step out of the car.
Okay.
Be aware there's a bunch of weapons.
Okay, yes, I have one knife. Lou can video this. They were sitting out there staging me. They followed me. They said I ran a red light. They were on my ass. Then you get a video. Get your video. You guys are awesome.
Why are you guys arresting him?
I ran a red light. No. Take my knife out of my pocket. I'm so dangerous. There's one in my left pocket. There's one in my left pocket. Get it out. Get my wallet, Mrs. Holland.
If you want to film, it's fine. Don't interrupt.
No, she can film whatever she wants. You can loosen the left cuff. Have her loosen the left cuff, man. No, you did not have permission to go through my license. You just went through my wallet without permission. You just went through my wallet.
You're under arrest.
You didn't read me my Miranda rights, sir. You didn't read me my Miranda rights. What are my Miranda rights? Listen up. Can I walk? I'm walking. Yeah. Baby, put my work stuff inside the house. Okay. Chris, come here, video.